Where was the leader of opposition who happens to be the head of your party as well today, sir?
The leader of opposition did not make it today because his brother-in-law passed away yesterday. So, there were some, the family was in mourning and he could not attend because of that. But, the government passed the budget with the bare minimum votes needed to form a government, which is 172. And, after Mengal Saab, with his absence and with the absence of Jamaat-e-Islami, the opposition could have managed the maximum of 161 votes, which would have had no impact on the passage of the finance bill. So, saying that our party, majority of our party members were there, and but to add on to that, I think the PMLN participated in the debate very well, and they gave their cut motions, and we gave our amendments as well, the recommended amendments. And our party, I've just gotten some figures that the government has accepted over 30 amendments in 6 clauses that were proposed by PMLN. So the budget is not in the same shape as the finance bill is not in the same. It has not been passed in the same shape as it was announced on 10th June. So I think this is what happens, that you announce the budget and then there is a debate, there is give and take, there is a big discussion, and the government has majority in it, is able to pass.
But since you actually mentioned that the opposition could garner 160, 161, the votes the opposition actually could produce was somewhere around 138, I think. So there seemed to be underwhelming spirit. I mean, opposition perhaps didn't want to topple the apple cart, or perhaps the opposition has reached some kind of compromise with the government. Is there a possibility of a compromise?
Not at all. I think the thing is that, as I said, with the absence of Dr. Mengal Saab and Jamaat-e-Islami's absentation from this from today, even if we were able to gather all the votes of the opposition, we would have been able to score 161 votes. So even then the finance bill would have been passed. So we tried. We and there was a good discussion on the budget, and this is how it is, how it works, and has been happening since the last 2-3 years since PTI is in government. So I think yes, there were claims that we would not let it pass, but it's more of politics, I suppose, and we wanted to reject. We do reject the initial budget.
Very quickly, before I come back to the studio, you said that the government actually took your recommendations on board. Can you name those recommendations, some of them?
Yes, we really highlighted the sale tax on, they introduced sale tax on 23 items. And I think, we were very vocal about that. And then also the tax on mobile phones and, on data as well.
Rana Sahab, your government, when your party was in government at center in Punjab, you were actually carrying out pilot projects for biometric verification, voting as well. That was actually an initiative that was introduced during your time. And then, of course, e-voting at that time was also being debated. Why is it that all of a sudden you have changed direction entirely and now you oppose all three?
Before we discuss what they want, we need to understand that when you're talking about electoral reform, you cannot go solo. You cannot bulldoze what you think is right, because you have to include all the stakeholders, be them in the parliament or outside the parliament. So a debate has to happen and consensus has to be built for electoral reforms. If you bulldoze them through the National Assembly or even through the Senate, if you have a majority, which you don't, but even if you do, it's not going to be effective when you're talking about electoral reform. Electoral related legislation has to be neutral, impartial, objective, and has to come through consensus. So that is the foremost thing before we discuss EVM or any of the amendments they want. When we brought the 2017 electoral reforms, Issaaq took almost, I don't know, there were 40 or 50 meetings with the opposition in the committee room. So there was a thorough debate, and then he also included parties which were not in the parliament. So that process cannot be skipped. If you do that, and if you do not listen to the concerns of the opposition and even your alliance parties, and you pass through a system which you think is correct, how will you say that you're going to have free and fair elections? I think the direction is very clear, and it is that we need to involve the ECP, and we need to involve all the stakeholders. That is why the APC, the All Parties Conference. So whatever decision, Shahbaz Sharif might have a different opinion, Khaqan Abbasi might have a different opinion, but when everyone sits together, obviously all pros and cons are discussed for each point, and then comes the consensus. So I agree with you that there could be different opinions within our party on how things should be for dual nationals voting, and whether they should be having reserve seats or whether they should be just voting for the constituency MNAs or MPAs. But then again, the background is
very quickly, taste of pudding and its eating. Is your party pro EVM or anti EVM?
Our party is pro consensus, and our party is against bulldozing and going solo and going for a system. If the consensus is made amongst the APC for EVM, we are with it. But if it has to come through that.